Hey everyone, welcome back to the series where we're talking about how to facilitate a group. Whew, man, let's try this again. We're talking about how to facilitate a group through heavy emotions. So you're doing deep, really heart work. And how do you do this? So disclaimer, I've done this all the weeks, and if you've listened to the past couple weeks, you know where this is going. So just a reminder, do not just take what you're hearing from this podcast and just start doing it, especially if you've not experienced on an ongoing basis if you do not have a community of practice. It's not safe for you because you don't really understand what you're doing and you haven't experienced that, you haven't received that on a continual basis. But two, it's also not safe for the people in your group. It's really not. And so you want to be in a safe community of practice with people that know what they're doing, people that have been trained what they're doing. So you can do this on a day in and day out basis with them, and then have the training to even be able to train to do a group like this. So just keep that in mind. We offer groups, of course, here at Step Out and Thrive. We keep them small for just that reason, so people can really experience and go deeper with one another. There's other organizations that I shared on the very, very, very first podcast, which you can refer to as well, because we're not the only ones out there. There are others like us. And what makes Step Out and Thrive different is that I work specifically with mental health professionals, Christian counselors, and pastoral care leaders that are constantly pouring out into other people. That's what makes Step Out and Thrive different, because I really want to work with the people that are big shocker, stepping out. And so I realized there's not a whole lot of encouragement in communities for those of us that are stepping out on a continual basis. So if that's you, Step Out and Thrive might be the perfect fit, but we'd love to have you. So with that being said, we are going down to the final two choices that we give to people who are checking in with heavy emotions in the group setting and how the group can care well for that. If you have not listened to any of the previous episodes, just stop here because you will get confused and it will be no fun for anybody who's trying to watch or listen to this. So please do go back to the first podcast in the series. It'll be fun. It'll be worth your time. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll get a lot. So go ahead and go back to that first episode and just start listening up. You can even like make it go on 2 times speed. Have you guys done that? Like seriously, like you can do that when you're doing an audio episode. You can actually put it on 2 times fast speed. That just blows my mind. I did that the other day and you can actually understand what the person's saying. So anyway, I think that's just amazing. So if you haven't done that, you can even do that. Fast speed. Okay, we're going to come back to topic. I'm a little ADD sometimes. So anyway, with that being said, this is the final two elements. And the reason we're covering this together is because the second one is only offered by people that have the training. So I only kind of talk about it really briefly on here. And that's pretty much it. So if you want to know more information, come be part of a group and I'll share more. So, because you really do have to have training in order to offer that. So we mentioned the other options up to this point. Again, the person checked in, they've shared, the group has asked curious questions, and now the facilitator or the group leader or the group counselor is going, how would you like the group to be best with you? And the first option was, we can just be with you. Again, go watch the episode if you haven't. That is a lot more choices to that. That's just, yeah, just go watch the episode. Number two was that we could listen to Jesus for you and with you. Again, there's a lot more in that episode too. Number three, we can pray with you now or throughout the week. Again, with all of these, I hope you guys are hearing, if you've been following this series, it's not just a question. It's not just a straight answer. Each of these questions or each of these ways of being with that person actually have many other options. So it's just really giving that person that sharing options of how they would like to be seen and heard and known by the group. They have that control. It's a huge way of doing this, and it's a healthy way of doing this, and it's a safe way of doing this. So we can just be with you. We can listen to Jesus with you. We can pray with you now or throughout the week. And number four, we can offer stories and advice. And I'll cover number five because we're only going to cover it briefly. Number five choice is we can connect later, meaning me and that other person. Hey, we can connect later. Maybe I can arrange a session, a one-on-one, just you and I. And so that looks different. But again, you cannot offer that if you're not a coach, if you're not a mental health professional, if you're not a counselor, whatever, and you get to decide what that session looks like. That doesn't have to be a normal session. You can also, depending on the group that you're running, you can put a financial, financial top on that, or usually what I do is, hey, pay it forward, whatever Jesus is telling you. Would love to have you because I want to be with them in that time, and I want to offer the best to me during that time. But again, that's all in your repertoire, whatever you're professionally able to do. If you don't have any professional certifications or abilities, don't offer that. Or you could actually have, if you're working with somebody else, like if you're at a church, you could say, hey, you could talk to your pastor, or you could talk to your freedom and care coordinator, or you can talk to somebody that has training and say, hey, if I have a group and somebody's checking in really heavy, can I offer them a time with you? And would that be okay? So that could be an option. Don't offer somebody something that you haven't checked to make sure that it's okay with the other person to offer that. Okay, so make sure you do that. If not, you got 4 choices, and each of those 4 choices have more choices. So trust me, it's okay just to have 4. It really is. And again, if you're brand new at this, you're practicing this one-on-one, so it's really okay to experiment, right? Yes, 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 it is. So this is the 4th choice that we're talking about today. And what we're saying is, hey, we can offer stories and advice. So you're sitting there in the group, the person says, yes, yes, I would love stories and advice about my situation. And then you're going to ask them, what exactly would you like stories and advice about? And they're going to go, because they've normally shared for 1 to 2 minutes about something. And so you're giving them a chance to reframe. You don't know what that word is. It's a coaching term, but it allows you to really kind of see something in a different way. So they're taking all that context that they just shared, and they're really going, okay, what I need, notice the difference. What I need from the group is this. And they're going to share a story or advice prompt that the group needs to listen around. So this is what the first thing is they're going to do. This is not, okay, anybody want to share? No, this is, we're going to spend some time quietly. We're going to put the timer on for 1 to 2 minutes. And I want you guys to ask Jesus, is there a story? Is there a piece of advice that I feel like is perfect for this time to share with Danny or Mike or Barb or whatever this person's name is? Okay. Did you bring something from mind that I'm supposed to share with this person right now? And you get quiet and you pay attention to what's coming up. And again, this is another example. We talked about this with the listening week. They do not have to share everything that comes to mind. This is not a share everything. This is really being intentional. Okay. And usually I'm even more specific. I say 1 piece of advice or 1 story. And story meaning 1 minute or less. This isn't share on and on and on and on. And so with that being said, I give them a couple minutes. They listen. Sometimes they write more than 1 thing down, and they really discern, okay, what is it that I believe is to be shared right now in this group setting for this person? And then they get a chance to share. And before they start sharing, I usually tell the person, hey, again, you asked for this, but again, try it on and see if it fits. Okay. And so they share, 1 person shares, see how many people are going to share. They go ahead and share with that person. And then afterwards, I usually check back in with the person that asked for sharing, say, hey, how was that for you? And they give some time to process sometimes. And I've had this happen to me as I've been receiving, as I've been part of these groups, I've realized like I have no words. Like it's literally so much for me to process. I have no words. That's okay. That's a safe response. Don't force it. Please don't force it. But just ask, okay, how was that for you? And they can share. Maybe it's the emotion word, maybe it's just that's all they can get out. Maybe they do have something short to say. So just listen to that and be aware of that and being paying attention to how the group is responding to that. So that is pretty much how that goes. A lot of times in kids, a lot of times kids have stories. Oh my goodness, do they have stories? And so what I try to do is in the kids situation is I say, okay, guys, this is what they want an answer on. So is there something that you have a story about when you've been in a similar situation? And what I do with kids is I said, it has to address this. So if they start telling and I'm like, this doesn't sound like a story that's addressing this, is it? And they'll have like a minute to decide or second to decide if they want to continue or not. I'm keeping in mind that we're making this one person the attention. And what I found out, the longer I do these kind of groups with kids, is that they realize they're going to get their turn too. And so they have less disruptions meaning they don't have to tell a story that's completely off topic because they know that the group is really going to care well for them. And so it really minimizes that. So I've really found that when kids ask for this, they really genuinely are like, hey, does anybody really understand how I'm feeling right now? Does anybody really understand what I'm going through right now? And has anybody went through something similar? And so it's really cool to watch kids really share deep hurts and times in their lives when they've had to go through like parents splitting up, or maybe a brother moving off to college, or maybe somebody else is moving, or maybe they're going to a new house, or maybe they're in a really hard class, whatever. And sometimes I think we discredit kids because they really do have that capacity to really encourage people in amazing ways. And I've seen it happen. Some of my best times have been actually with kids practicing this skill. I think we can learn a lot actually from kids and parents. Parents, this is a great thing to do with your kids. So I will say this really quick. I shared this with the Table and Well podcast, and they're another one I do a shout out for. I help them with facilitating some of their groups and being part of some of their groups, and they practice these practices as well. And one of the things I just like, hey, I do check in with my kids. I do practice these with my kids. I'm like, what does that look like? I'm like, I break out Oreos. And it can be off-brand Oreos, which I know they don't like as much, or they can be the real thing. And when they're the real thing, I'm amazed how deeper the check-ins go. So sometimes as a mom, I'm like, we're saving up for the real things this week because I want to know what's going on. And they get some milk and we check in, like, okay, guys, what's going on? And they'll check in and they'll share how they're doing and how their week is going. And they know that I am a mom and I'm not going to try to fix. It can be so hard not fixing. It's like, oh, but it is a safe place where they can share with one another and they can ask, for stories and advice. They can ask to listen. They can ask for prayer, and they know it's a safe place. They don't get coaching. I can't offer them, like, sometimes I will say, hey, or is this something that you need to speak with mom one-on-one about later? They can have that option. But most of my kids, I mean, I have 3 boys, and I think that option was only mentioned one time, and it was later shared to the group. So I'm proud of my boys. They do know how to do this. It's not something we do like every single day because I think that's almost too much to ask for kids. But for adults and couples, yeah, I would love for you guys to start practicing that. Now, I will say one more disclaimer with this. You need to practice interactive appreciation before. That's one thing that you could just spend a lot of time before even trying to do this. And again, you should be practicing one-on-one, not with a group unless you have that experience. Always have to add that in. But also, if you are practicing with a spouse or even with your kids and you realize it's hard, you are correct because you're bringing on all that baggage into this check-in time. You're not seeing each other at face value. It's really hard to get to that point. But when each of you guys, if the wife has a woman in her life that she's checking in with, and the husband has a man in his life that he's checking in with, at both same spiritual or even upper, higher emotional maturity levels, that they're practicing that with maybe on a weekly basis, and then the husband and wife come together and they try to check in, it usually works out better because what's happening is that they're getting refueled by this relationship over here or by this group over here. So they're able to check in a healthier way. And so just keep that in mind. That could be something that's going on. That's something I've seen by people that come into my groups, is that they're like, wow, I can now check in with my spouse because I see I'm getting fulfilled here. I'm getting just to see how people respond here. So I know how to respond better in my relationships. And so it really does impact so many different things and so many different levels. So again, if you would love to be part of a Step Out and Thrive group, normally we call these TIP groups, which is Thrive, interactive, or even intentional practice groups. And we have TIP, just normal 2-month groups, but we also have TIP community groups, which can go for 6 months, almost to a whole year, where you can learn how to do these groups well, and then also launch them if you're a professional in your community, in your area of practice. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I would love to connect one-on-one. And you can find me on my website, bethanyboring.com, my splash page there, and you can see all the good things that are coming up. So I hope this was of benefit to you. I hope you're walking away with just a whole different idea of like, wow, like I can do groups differently. I can experience, really more than anything, I can experience groups differently because you can. There are so many different types of groups out there. So even with Thrive or not Thrive, with Step Out and Thrive, we offer different kind of groups. So well, some tip groups are just interactive appreciation. Some tip groups we practice just check-in. Some tip groups we practice just different emotional regulation or different models that you can walk through with different people. With the tip community group, we do things completely different. We practice check-in and appreciation every other week. Whereas in the off weeks, we practice a thing called confessional community, which is working on your story. So for the first 6 months, these people are just getting to know each other like really well through all of these practices. And then the second 6 months, those same people are learning how to lead and facilitate and do these groups in their own area of practice. So it's different levels, as you can see. But all of these groups have something in common, that they're able to create a safety net with one another and they're able to go deeper. And so if you're with a community of practice that really does want to work on their relational skills and they really want to know what it's like practicing showing up for other people, it's going to look messy. Sometimes it's going to be hard, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it in the end, because that first step out is not always comfortable and it's a little scary. But we all know that first step out, it leads to thriving and thriving in amazing ways. So I'm praying for you as you put these skills to practice on a one-on-one basis. I would love to see you in one of our groups. And if I can do anything to walk with you in any way, please let me know. All right, guys. Hope you enjoy the series, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.